1 week season.
1 week season, fam. La Familia, welcome back. It is DFS Labs Fanduel edition for week 4. My name is Mike Johnson, M Johnson 86, as I am known in those DFS and best ball streets. We are coming to you once again, almost a quarter of the way through the NFL season. Ready to roll, ready to get down to business today. And there's an 11-game slate. We've got a London game this week, 8:30 in the morning, the Vikings and Steelers. So that takes one game off the slate. And then there's another doubleheader on Monday night, which takes another game off the slate. So 11-game main slate. This will be the smallest we have had so far this season. And I believe they'll all be 10 or 11 games for a few weeks now, because we're going to have bye weeks starting in week 5. So with all of that said, we're going to get down to business. I'm going to bring on my esteemed colleague, Maximus. How we doing today, week 4?
Almost, you said it, almost a quarter of a way through the season. That's crazy. Time flies whether you're having fun or not.
Yeah, for sure. It's it's right at that point too, where we've got now multiple data points. The first week you can have flukes. The second week, sometimes matchups are different. But once you get to week 3, you start to see some trends. You start to see some things. Teams start to adjust some things. And frankly, there's some level of teams like who are, it might be time to take the gloves off, and that teams that are 1-2 or 0-3 that are in danger of letting their season slip away. Some teams, coaches might have job security issues going on. We saw the Giants are moving to Jackson Dart as a starter this week. So just a lot of variables at play. And this is really kind of the meat and potatoes of the season for me, when everyone still feels like they're alive. Even the teams that have looked really bad and are struggling, they all still have that level of hope where they can kind of turn things around. And that kind of historically for me, week like 4 to 8 has been the sweet spot where I've had the most success, I would say, over the years consistently, just because it is that sweet spot of we know we have an idea what these teams are trying to be, and they're still trying to be it before you have systemic collapse or all sorts of other things that can go on with coaching staffs, personnel, front office, etc. So I'm really excited to dig into this one. How about you?
Yeah, definitely. And then there's a few surprises as well with teams and offenses we didn't necessarily expect to see doing well, and they're thriving. And so it's good to see if that's just a trend or if it's actually actionable based on the coaching staffs and the players' skill sets, how they're being utilized. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it with you.
Absolutely. This week, FanDuel has their Sunday Million drops in size from 1.7 to 1.6 million, $15 entry. It's over 100,000 entries. That one, it's $300,000 to first. So they've, as it's gotten smaller, they don't actually have the $1 million first prize. But that's such a huge field tournament. 300,000 to first, only 7,500 to 10th place. So a huge drop off, super top heavy there. Few other good ones. They've got guaranteed overlay in their $4 max tournament, the 300K snap. That one's always fun, and it pays out 50% of the field. That one, again, 67,000 people. So very high, it's a very large field type tournament. But then they do have 3 tournaments, a little bit higher dollar, that are lower maximums for how many you can enter. They've got their $150 end zone tournament, 200K to prize pool, has guaranteed overlay. So there's, a lot of EV there. Just there's not rake. It's the opposite of usually there's that rake that they're taking from the total prize pool, 20K to first. But that's a 10 entry max for the $150. They have a $50 single entry that it looks like a pretty cool structure. 10 grand to first, $100,000 total prize pool with that guaranteed overlay, 1,800 people. I think that one, and then I know you usually play the $65 5 max. This week they more than doubled the size of it and made it a 10 max, and added overlay as well. So rather than the 15% take. You usually have it's like 9% overlay guaranteed. So some expected value there. I know we've talked privately about, you love that tournament structure that they usually have, which I'm sure they'll definitely have back next week, but they're kind of toying with some things. What do you say we build for that single entry today?
Yeah, I'm cool with that. The hot route, is that what that one is?
Yep.
Yeah, I like the hot route too. That's a good structure. It's a little over 20% of the field gets paid on it based on the what I'm seeing here.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good one.
Perfect. And yeah, that one it has $100,000 guaranteed prize pool, but with 1,800 entries and only $50 per entry, that's only $90,000 in the prize pool, or that in entry fees. So $10,000 in basically free money overlay that Fanduel's adding there. So yeah, that's a good one. If you are a bargain hunter like myself, that is a great place to stick your money this week.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'll let you take it away. Get us started with, what you want to build for the meat and potatoes of this lineup.
Sure. Interesting, the pricing now. As expected, pricing is getting tighter. It's getting at specific positions, especially wide receiver and running backs, prices are going up. But there's still a lot of value. The tight end position in particular is still kind of pretty value territory to in designing your builds. But in saying that, I want to start with a game and looking at the slate, some of the different game environments. What's intriguing me, at least on the face of it, there's a couple good spots, but we're going to go with an offense that definitely has performed better than expected. They have this unbelievable statistic of punting one time in 3 games, and that is an NFL record, actually. So under Shane Steichen's offensive system, a little dyslexia there.
If it starts going bad this season, we'll start calling him Stain Scheichen.
There you go. Stinker Stain, maybe.
Yeah.
So let's go with the quarterback that I feel is a prototype for FanDuel. You like quarterbacks that have rushing ability on top of the skill set, and his price is great. Let's go ahead. He's been hotter than a pistol to start the season. Daniel Jones for the Indianapolis Colts at $7,400. He's performed well regardless of the competition. He's faced a tough defense. He's a couple tough defenses. He's faced not so tough a defense. So it seems like his playing, based in the system that he has found himself in, seems to be agnostic of matchup, at least so far. But so I do like that game. The Colts at the Rams, 2 teams. I think it's the highest game total on the slate at 49.5 currently. So we like that. There's clear, at least on one side of the ball, concentration, which would be their opponent. So I'm going to go ahead. Let's start with Daniel Jones. Let's hook up. And I know this has kind of been our go-to almost every week, but his price doesn't move. He leads the team in red zone targets. Let's go Tyler Warren for the Indianapolis Colts at tight end. Although at tight end, you could pretty much go all the way up the ladder this week based on the pricing, with some of the values that can be found, which I actually talk about in my article coming in the scroll a little bit later in the week. But we'll go ahead for the purpose of this build. Daniel Jones, let's pair him with Tyler Warren. Let's bring it back with Davante Adams for the Rams, also at $7,400. And Davante has scored 2 receiving touchdowns over the course of the first 3 games of the season. We like touchdowns, especially on FanDuel. And he's averaged over 8 targets a game. I mean, it seems like the offense is basically a 3-man show between Puka, who's awesome, of course, Davante, and Kyron Williams. But Davante Adams' price is $2,000 less than Puka. So maybe as we continue to go in this build, we can get up to some higher price guys. But for the sake of the start, I'll steer towards Daniel Jones, Tyler Warren. I think Pittman, as much as I don't know, historically we turn our nose with a player like Pittman. He has had a good season so far. He's definitely been producing, and he's also at a good price. But for the sake of this build, Daniel Jones, Tyler Warren, Devontae Adams, bring back, and then I will throw it back to you where you want to go from there.
Yeah, I think the Warren versus Pittman discussion is a good one. Jonathan Taylor is the highest priced player on the slate, regardless of position. Obviously, he's a great play any game, but like it becomes, even the Rams, their defense has looked pretty good this season, but we also, they played the Texans, who are a mess, the Titans, who have been kind of a mess as well. And then the Eagles, who, the Rams defense looked really good against the Eagles to start the game. And then the Eagles kind of had no choice but to open things up, and they kind of had their way with them in the second half. So the Rams are a team that I do think they have a good defense, but it probably looks better when you see those opponent rank, how good they are against certain positions. Probably looks better right now than what the reality is. They're probably not the best team in the league against running backs. So Taylor's fine, but is he going to put up 30 points in this game? Probably not. And I really do like, betting on the game environment here. And then the Warren and Pittman discussion, that just kind of becomes one where they're the exact same price and they kind of have the same type of role, kind of projection. Pittman's got 2 touchdowns this season. Warren does not have any. But from a target count perspective, Warren has 21 targets on the season, and Pittman has 19. So, you look at that and you're giving up a roster spot at wide receiver or a tight end. And there's just simply fewer. If Warren scores a touchdown, and he has his even 60 to 70 yards, which has kind of been his thing so far, that situates him really well at the position for you. Whereas Pittman, if he puts up 60, 70 yards and a touchdown from the wide receiver position, doesn't do as much. So I think they project really well, but using that tight end position within your initial game stack, I think is really good. Who do you, before we get into the rest of the meat and potatoes, is there a defense that you want to target specifically? And then we can kind of build from there, and we can adjust it later if need be.
Right. I like that thought real quick with the Tyler Warren tight end call. It's kind of the deciding factor. No tight ends have really separated from the pack at that position this year yet. And so, I know when we drafted in best ball, Bowers and McBride were kind of going, they were the early guys, but you're banking on those guys far surpassing the rest of the field at that position for it to be worth it. And so in this case, you have someone who I think the talent factor is similar to those guys, and no one's really separated from the pack yet as a clear, this is the tight end one on the year. So yeah, from that perspective too, that's a good note on, as opposed to the wide receiver, where there's probably a lot. Well, I know one in particular, a lot of wide receivers in Pittman's area that can probably do better than maybe his upper echelon typical result. So yeah, I do like that. Defense wise, it's interesting this week. I briefly looked at it before we went on, and it seems like it's going to be more of a, in my opinion, more of a pay up defense this week. When I look at the kind of the bottom tier of defenses, at least at first glance, I'm thinking maybe higher end of the spectrum. I liked your call on the Texans defense last week. I wouldn't mind going back with them again. At home, they still haven't won a game. Cam Ward, I think the report was that the head coach is now going to have the quarterback coach or coordinator kind of handling the Cam Ward duties now going forward, because they haven't been working out yet. So the Texans, the Patriots at home against Carolina, although Carolina looked good last week at home. I'll have to monitor if the Patriots get Gonzalez back or not. In the secondary, but that could be a candidate. And then moving up the ladder a little bit more, of course, the Lions at home against Cleveland, or Buffalo against the Saints. Again, on FanDuel, guys, it is good strategy to pay up at defense, because it doesn't affect as much your overall salary like it does on DraftKings, theoretically. So those are a couple of my defensive shout outs, probably more on the higher range. What says you?
Yeah, sorry. What were the two I was just toying around with some things. The couple that you suggested for me to pick between.
Kind of in the mid-range,
Okay.
Patriots or the Texans.
Okay.
And then on the higher range, the Lions at home against the Browns and the Bills at home.
Let's just go with the Bills to start, and then we can come down. I like all those that you mentioned. So we'll see where it goes. And if we need like the Bills, I mean, we saw what the Seahawks did last week. It could get real ugly real quick. So I think, like, to me, I was saying this to someone in Discord, I think start with the Bills and then build a lineup. And if you look at it and you're not real comfortable with where it's at, figure out where you're going to go down to from there. So yeah, I think that kind of fits well too here, because our primary stack here, was not very costly. So on the face of it, we can probably afford to spend a little and go from there. So, excuse me. I think what I want to do next is I'm going to go with Bucky Irving, and I'm going to do two things. I'm going to do Bucky Irving, Emeka Egbuka, and then we're also going to go Quentin Johnston and Omari and Hampton. And what we're doing here is the Bucks are going to be without Mike Evans with a hamstring injury. If you look at the Bucks last week, they beat the New York Jets. They had 34 rushing attempts. They had 29 pass attempts. So that's 63 plays. They probably had a couple sacks in there or whatnot. But what it comes down to here is when we look at the usage for this team, it's going to be real concentrated. Bucky Irving had 25 rushes, 25 of those 34 rushes. And then of the 28 targets that the receivers had, Irving and Emeka Egbuka combined for 12 of them. So you're looking at 12 and 25, 37, and that was with Evans on the field. Evans had 8 of the 28 targets. So he was at like a 30% target share himself. So what we're doing here with these offenses is we are making concentrated bets. And this is especially for this specific tournament, right? 1,800 people. You don't have to be as perfect as those 60,000 or 100,000 entry tournaments. And it's single entry. So people are going to gravitate to certain spots or try to build certain ways. I think that this running back pass catcher, these duos being used together, is underutilized because people always think, oh, well, one is going to take away from the other, especially when the quarterback is not involved. But you look at the Buccaneers, this is a game where I would expect, there is, it's a 44-point total, so it's not through the roof, but we've also seen these Eagles games. We saw last week the Eagles, their defense can be suspect. And I think things are going to be really concentrated here. And when you look at the price tags of Irving at 7,300 and Egbuka at 7,000, that's a pretty nice block when you consider they're probably going to score 2 or 3 touchdowns here. Good chance that, all or most of them come through those two guys, as well as most of the receptions and a lot of the yardage. So that's one. And then for the Chargers, we saw Najee Harris go down. Amari and Hampton's going to be a workhorse. He'll probably be very popular this week in that matchup with the Giants. And then Quentin Johnston, he's just still mispriced. They have a pretty even across the board. They're 3 receivers, but Johnston seems to be emerging, and he had a nice game last week against Patrick Surtain. So 6,200 here. Similar to the Bucks discussion. I think that QJ and Hampton together on a roster, you could kind of soak up a large portion of that offense all in one fell swoop. What say you?
Yeah, I like the concentration on both sides. In the case of the Bucks, the whole game. We know the Eagles are a concentrated offense. The Bucks, because of injury, Evans, like you said, he's out for at least probably 2 weeks. I mean, Chris Godwin at best will be eased in if he does play this week. And Emeka Egbuka you read my mind again. He's in my article this week for the wide receiver. I mean, he's had a really impressive start to the season for a rookie. He's actually recorded 3 receiving touchdowns over the course of 3 games. So, I mean, he's averaging 7 targets a game, and that's with Mike Evans in the lineup. So I think the volume and opportunity will be more for him. And then, Quentin Johnston, I mean, he was misdrafted in best ball. I got plenty of shares of him, and he's being mispriced in DFS. So people haven't caught up to the fact that, they believe in him, they're using him. And let's, I'm down to continue to roll with him in lineups where it makes sense. One other honorable mention I give, this is going way down the ladder, and I'd be crazy if I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but at 5,400, Cam Scatterbo, $5,400. He last week when Tyrone Tracy left in the first quarter with a dislocated shoulder, Scatterbo proceeded to rush the ball 10 times for 60 yards, a rushing touchdown, and then he had 6 receptions on 8 targets in addition to that. So if that's an outlook on how he may be used going forward, and we also have Jackson Dart starting this week now at 5,400, a starting running back who can catch the ball, sign me up. And so I thought I'd mention him too, now that we know that injury-wise Tracy will be out. He's going to miss some time as well.
Yeah, I do like him a good amount. If you look at the here we go. This is our site 1 week season, just the list of games here. And we have the game totals. You can click on each game, and that will take you to the NFL Edge write-ups, which will be live. Usually they're all live Thursday by kickoff of the Thursday night game. Sometimes some others straggle in there as well. But, when you look at this, the concern I have with Scatterbo, especially on Fanduel, is we have the Titans at 15.75 implied points, the Saints at 16, the Browns at 17, and then the Giants at 18.75. So there's 22 teams on the slate, and they are 18th in expected points. Not that that's the end all be all. And I do think that they looked so bad on Sunday night, and, Dart is a unknown variable. So it's it can't really get worse. But the one thing I would say there is, I think he's a good piece, but I think some people will build a lineup and he'll be one of their first clicks. Whereas I think he would make sense as a last click, if you're trying to fit something in and you didn't have enough value there. So this specific lineup, probably not, but and he's a guy I'm probably more into, probably more likely to pick him on a DraftKings lineup, just because if he gets those 5 or 6 catches for 40, 50 yards on DraftKings, that alone almost makes him a piece that you can still win with regardless of whatever happens. But also field size matters too. So I'd be more prone to choose him on FanDuel in a contest like this that is smaller field, where you can get away with it if the whole offense just looks like garbage again. But yeah, he'll be a very important decision point on the slate. I think that's fair to say for sure.
Yeah, and good point. And the Chargers have a pretty good defense as well. And I mean, definitely not for this team. We have enough salary to where I'm looking at the range of players that are left based on the salary that we have left over. And I actually like a few players in that price range that we have left over. But yeah, I was just shouting them out overall as an opportunity to have a, starting running back at a cheap price. So.
Yeah, it's definitely the good discussion to have. And like I said, it'll be a decision point that people have to think about. All right. So where do we want to go from here?
Well, with 6,900 left, there's three players there. Jameson Williams hasn't quite caught fire yet. He's at home against Cleveland. You figure that blow up's coming at some point where Jameson will have a ceiling game. So I kind of like him there, and he probably won't be that owned. Ashton Genty is another one. I think people are overall, the recency bias are probably down on, but now they get to go back home against the Bears and, another week under his belt. Genty could definitely make an impact in that game potentially. And then also Brock Bowers, who's the tight end mentioned in my article, at 6,700 for a player that most people still think could be when it's all said and done, the tight end one on the year. That's a pretty good price for him. And of course, you have a unique build with the two tight ends that typically isn't necessarily advisable, but Bowers is the kind of guy that you could probably pull that off with based on what his, he hasn't had a touchdown yet. That regression's probably coming, and the Chicago secondary is decimated with injuries right now. So all three of those guys, and then you got Monty under that. Monty looked great on Monday night. He seemed to have a pep in his step. That was fun to watch. So I'm cool with any of those guys with the salary we have left over, or we can adjust something else and go higher or lower.
I'm gonna say, is there anyone that stands out to you kind of in this, in this group up to? So we've got 6,900. You could go up. If we were to go to the Texans, we'd have up to 7,500. So anyone on the screen there, I don't know how well you can see it, but Kamara, Brian Thomas Jr., Zay Flowers, Rome Odunze, Drake London, Travis Etienne, any of those guys that really, stand out to you as potential options to fill this last spot?
Yeah, I'm catching up to you here. I have it on my screen too. So if we went with the Texans, I definitely like Rome Odunze in that same game we were just talking about. I think he is starting. I mean, we're 4 weeks in now. I think he's starting to become that wide receiver one, undeniably for that team. I think that chemistry's been building with Caleb. Obviously, we mentioned them on our last week build, and that thankfully came to fruition, and we looked pretty good on that one at least. But yeah, I'm not opposed to a Odunze there. Some of the other guys, a little more speculative. Like, I like Zay Flowers, but he's always in a crowded kind of player room for the Ravens. They're kind of spread out. Brian Thomas Jr., I mean, before the season started, I'd say plug him right in, but clearly there's chemistry issues with Trevor Lawrence still to this point, and they're on the road. Kamara at Buffalo could be tough sledding. I would say on the face of it, based on that area, Rome Odunze, I would say out of that lineup. What about you?
Yeah, so let's go with the Texans, and let's make that change to the Texans like we had talked about. And then what that leaves us with is 7,500. So what we could do there is we could just go ahead and throw Brian Thomas Jr. in to that slot. He's playing in the 305 window, and Odunze also plays in the late window at 325. So it gives us, we'll have the Tampa Bay core will have played. We will have the Chargers core will have played, and the Texans will have played. So we'll have our Jones, Warren, Adams grouping, and then we have Thomas in at the flex. And as you said, I think everything you said like lines up totally. But I also would totally expect that Brian Thomas Jr. will be far less owned than Rome Odunze because everyone else has probably seen what we're seeing. And I do think Odunze is probably a better play. But, we can kind of, we would be able to evaluate. And once we get to, mid fourth quarter before those late games start, mid fourth quarter of the early games, and kind of see where we're stacking up, we could make that decision then and say, okay, do we want to go with Thomas? Do we want to swap to Odunze? And then we would still have, options at that 325 window. We could, depending on how things go, but I would probably be either Thomas or Odunze, just on the standpoint of like who Thomas is and what the expectation was coming into the season. And then just having that optionality of, are we in position where maybe we can get there, but we're too far back to where we're not going to get there if we play the really popular guy. So that gives us some optionality there. And if we're sitting in like really good spot where like you can kind of see, especially in these smaller tournaments, you can kind of scroll through the leaderboard. Oh, I just realized I still have I've had our site up that whole time. You can see as you go through the leaderboard, you can click through and kind of see which teams are around you on the scoring and have similar amounts of time left. How many players they have left and stuff. So definitely some game theory you can get into in these smaller contests, this being only 1,800 people. So I like that angle. We'll leave Brian Thomas in here for now, but it would basically be where are we at? Where do we stand? And in a single entry, it's easier to keep track of than like if you're in the MME streets where you might have, 50 or 150 lineups, and it's hard to go back and track each one. I want to do this if this happens. But when you have, a single entry or like the 5 max you usually do, it's a lot easier to be like on top of the strategy components of each lineup.
Absolutely. And it's a good talking point for late swap, guys. That's why you typically want to do a 4 o'clock player in the flex. If you're behind and you have ground to make up, go with the lower owned player at that point. That's relevant. And then if you're ahead of the field, or if you're kind of trying to stay on top, then go with the chalkier guy that more of the field is also playing that's left over. So yeah, it's a good talking point on thinking through late swap and how it can benefit you as you go through the day, kind of monitoring your teams.
Yep. And the other thing you could do there is as you approach that late window, you could swap Adams to Puka Nacua. You'd have, Tyquan Thornton as a low-owned, big play type guy that you could go to. Mark Andrews, double tight end. You could go to him in that tight end spot. Just a lot of options. You could go instead of Warren or instead of Nacua, you could go swap off Adams to Kyron Williams, and throw somebody else in there at the wide receiver spot. Just a lot you could do there. Like Thornton's a type of guy too, where Xavier Worthy's probably going to come back this week, but they don't know what capacity. And I would guess that that's going to be like a game time call that we get, we get confirmation of that he'll be active or like what the status is going to be. So we probably won't know that before the early games kick off. Not that I want to play Worthy, but if he's out or if something is like, oh, he's going to play 10 snaps, then Thornton could be like a perfect low-owned type guy to hit on a couple big plays, especially with Baltimore coming to town where they can put up a bunch of points. So, a lot to think about there. But, yeah, I like how this lineup kind of sets up. For now, you've got the 3 real concentrated bets with the Rams-Colts game, and then the Bucks and the Chargers offense. Kind of one team, the Chargers, that are fairly condensed, and we are expecting to score a lot of points, have a lot of offensive success, getting their 2 main offensive pieces for just over $13K on Fanduel is a pretty nice little block, and then same with the Bucks. They have a tougher matchup on paper, but they're playing at home, and they should be very, very concentrated. So, I really like how this lineup came together. For the listeners on the podcast feed, the final lineup: Daniel Jones at quarterback, running backs Bucky Irving and Amari and Hampton. Along with that, we have their teammates at wide receiver, Emeka Egbuka and Quentin Johnston, and then Devontae Adams. And then we have Tyler Warren at tight end to finish off that game stack. Brian Thomas Jr. as our low-owned piece to kind of bring it all together, and the Texans defense to go ahead and pick on Brian Callahan and the Titans quote-unquote offense, if he wants to call it that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a good start. I look forward to seeing the week continue to unfold and see where we go from there. When you had it on Puka, that got you in the Scatabo territory too, and the flex, among a few other names that were viable, I think too. So yeah, the Tyquan Thornton thing will be interesting of whether Worthy plays or not. So yeah, that's a good shout out too. Yeah,
the Scatabo, you'd have to make that decision before the game start because he's in the early window. But yeah, certainly that would make sense as well. Just again, the way pricing is getting tighter and the way especially the studs are getting priced up, just the nature of it, like Puka probably won't be super high owned relative to, like, he doesn't have a receiving touchdown this year. And obviously we know he's real good. So it wouldn't be shocking for him to, all of a sudden he has that 2 touchdown game or whatever it is. So, certainly.
Just a matter of time.
Yep. Pay up to, I wouldn't say to be contrarian, but, for his ability to break the slate once the game starts, the salaries don't matter. He certainly has an ability to put up 30 points and kind of alter the state of the whole slate. So, I think it's pretty good. I think it was another great week. Look forward to talking to everyone in the Discord. Hit us up on Twitter. Check us out, oneweekseason.com. We got a lot going on. We have weekly and yearly subscriptions available. We have the Bink machine, our optimizer, along with our Sims, which have been helping me out greatly for these first 3 weeks. So thank you, Steve. Thank you to all our viewers and listeners. We will see you in Discord. We will see you on Twitter, and we will see you at the top of the leaderboards. Peace.